Yes, yes, please move from the back. There's plenty of seats up front, and I don't think the moderators are going to heckle the audience. I think you're safe sitting in the front row. So come on up. There's plenty of room. No need to be. All right. I'll let you guys get situated real quick. Hey, by the way, how many people are excited about a 10-year deal with the NFL? Come on. San Diego's a football town, and a hand for Philippe. Come on. This was a lot of information. We heard about train stations and farmers, and it was a lot. I mean, I'm a lay person, and I'm excited. And I'm not that excited about technology most of the time. So everybody come on forward, please. There's no reason to be back by the door before I bring the next guy up. If you have a seat next to you, this is like Southwest Airlines. It's going to be a middle seat. Put your hands up. Everybody's taking the aisles, so put your hands up if you have a seat next to you, and invite people. See, look how nice that is. Your neighbors want you to come down and have a seat. Come on down. I'm going to bring up the next fella because we're running a little bit late, and he's also a VP, so I want to make sure to say his name properly. And being from Miami, I think I can do this. It's a very welcome to Fantasy Island name. So please welcome Senior Director of Qualcomm, Gerado Giaretta. I got that right. Gerardo, I got it right. Got the clicker.
Thanks for the promotion, because I just became the VP. As you just
congratulations.
Said. You just said it. It's not true, but it's fine anyway.
Senior director. But yes. I'm very intuitive, so
yes,
good luck.
That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So good morning. Good morning, everybody. So thanks also to Philippe, who stole 5 minutes of my time. So that's good. So now I have 26 minutes. So private network. Today we're going to talk about 5G private network. I'm going to talk a little bit about how the opportunity is. I think there is a lot of hype about that, and an important one. Talk about the challenges that we see in deploying private network. What is Qualcomm approach to deploying private network? And then how, at the end of the day, we unlock this 5G private network opportunity. So $3.5 billion. That is what Mobile Expert said in a report last year as the global private 5G LTE market size by 2026. Now, we can debate, is that going to be 3 billion, is it going to be 5 billion, 10 billion, 2 billion? Nobody knows. It's a new market, right? But what we know is that it's going to be a big opportunity. And the way we know that is for the amount of conversation and diversity of conversation that we have with all the different partners in the ecosystem. Every of these industries that you see here, from container ports to manufacturing, mines, airports, they're going through their digital transformation, as Cristiano described last year. And private network and 5G in general becomes an enabler to that digital transformation. So of course, all those players don't care about the technology itself, and they shouldn't care about the technology about itself. But they care about the use cases. They care about how the digital transformation evolves. And that's private network becomes an enabler for that, in order for that to be seamless. So let's do a step back for a second and trying to define a little bit what private network is, at least classify them. A little bit of technicalities here, not much, right? So there are different ways of how private network can be deployed. In its simplest way, we can consider a slice from an operator to be a private network. I would call it a VPN. In this case, it's a virtual private network, right? In this particular case, you have an operator who assigns some resources to a given customer, right? And there is no dedicated physical resources to that customer, but there are virtual resources about that customers. So this use case is very good, for example, if a customer needs a wide range communication, right? They need a very large geography. You need a private network for your use case across the entire North America that you cannot go and deploy small cell or your own macro cell for that, right, as an enterprise. So this is one simplest, if you want, use case that can already be defined as private network. The second one is what I'm calling here integrated private network, which is a model where you have some of the resources that are physically present in the enterprise, right? You have radio unit or small cells. And by the way, I'm using the term enterprise in general here, as can be a factory, can be a port, can be anything, right? So physically present in an enterprise. And the data plane, usually the user plane, so the traffic, the data traffic, it remains within the premises because either of latency or privacy or whatever other reason. But then there are a lot of functionality of the network that can still stay in the cloud. It can be shared across private network, right? The control plane, the authentication, how this is done, and so forth. So that's a way how you can start having some dedicated physical resources, but still having a way to deploy network in a little bit in a less intrusive way into your ecosystem, right? And then instead, from what I call here an independent private network is really, if you want, the pure private network, right? The dedicated private network. The private network where everything is on site. You have a small cell, you have radio units, you have everything on site. User plane is on site, everything is on site. And that's really where the network is dedicated only to the devices on site. If you have to connect to a public network, then you have to have a double subscription, right? You have to have 2 SIM cards or whatever subscription you're using, right? So these are the types of private networks. And one thing that you can see that is the diversity of use cases, right? And then I'm going to keep repeating there, diversity of use cases, because that's, to me, the main difference when we move from public network to private network, right? When we talk about public network, first, there are a lot of use cases, as Philippe described, and so forth. At the end of the day, the majority of the use cases, or the way networks are built, are mostly for smartphone and consumer use cases, at least so far. Private network, that's not the case, right? You have a port, a manufacturer, a university, a carpenter enterprise, a hotel. These are all completely use cases in terms of application that are run, in terms of the environment, in terms of the latency requirement, the throughput requirement. And so the network needs to have a specific way how it is built. And so how do you extract the full potential from the network, right? I cannot just take a network that I design for a carpeted enterprise to give better performance on top of Wi-Fi and put that in a manufacturing site. It's not going to work. It's not going to meet the demand, right? So how do you extract those potential? And because of that, the other key point I will make throughout the presentation is how do you enable a multi-vendor solution that is, however, doesn't have the, if you want, the weaknesses of multi-vendor. So multi-vendor is going to be extremely important because of the diversity of use cases, right? You know, as part of Qualcomm, we are, as I'll talk later, we are one of the leaders of small cell, chipset for small cell, right? And we have a lot of customers on small cell. Every single customer has different product, indoor, outdoor, some for industrial use cases, some for commercial use cases, and so forth. So private network will end up using different products. So they will be multi-vendor in nature. And I'm not saying that within an enterprise you need to be multi-vendor. Maybe within an enterprise you are single vendor. But if you are an operator of private network, like a system integrator or a mobile network operator who deploys private network, you will end up having multi-vendor. And so if you are multi-vendor, how do you provide that end-to-end solution that somehow hide the complexity of the multi-vendor underneath? And the last 2 points are about how you manage and you plan simply the private network, and how you make sure that the private network is always optimized for your use cases, right? Mobile network operators have hundreds, thousands of engineers whose job is to deploy, manage, and optimize networks. An enterprise doesn't, right? It doesn't have any, most probably. And so they will rely on somebody else to do it, but it needs to be simple. It needs to be, sometimes we say, as simple as Wi-Fi. I would say even simpler than Wi-Fi. So if you take all these challenges, then the question is, from our perspective, from a Qualcomm perspective, how do we see the main characteristics, the main requirements for a private network solution? So one, it needs to be a powerful 5G network performance, right? We have talked with so many players in the ecosystem. Oh, we tried it. It didn't work well. The latency was high. We tried LTE. things didn't work well and so forth. And then you start digging deeper, and then certain features were not enabled in the right way. Certain deployment was not done in the right way. So the 5G network performance needs to be key. That's why everything needs to be, again, I go back to the previous point. The enterprise doesn't care about the technology. It cares about the use case. So the technology needs to hide within, but it needs to work perfectly. The second thing, if you are developing a private network solution, it needs to be able to support multi-vendor because of the diversity of deployment that there are. And the third thing is that it needs to be very easy to deploy and very easy to manage, exactly because there are no those hundreds and thousands of engineers that whose job is to do that. So what is Qualcomm comprehensive approach to private networks? So first thing, our play is an ecosystem play. From a Qualcomm perspective, we are not going to provide a single silo private network ourselves, right? We're not going to develop all the components for the private network. We have some assets that I will discuss and some components that we are developing, but it is an ecosystem play for us. It is a partnership play, right? But there are some fundamentals that I will describe that we will use in order to work with the partners in order to do that. So the four things that I'll describe here are one, our partner program, right? How we put together different vendors and deploy things in a way that is reliable. Second, the 5G RAN platform, which is the small cell platform. Third, the Qualcomm private network RAN automation. And then, of course, the end device, given that we are Qualcomm, end device is extremely important, right? So these are the components for our comprehensive approach. But the main point here is that Qualcomm will not provide by itself a private network solution to customer. We're working with many partners to do that, right? So the foundational piece for us is the 5G RAN platform. In particular, the 5G RAN platform for small cell. I'm saying small cell simply because majority, even though not all, private network tend to be small in scale, tend to be indoor, not all. Some can be outdoor, but still small scale. And so usually they are deployed with small cells, right? And of course, we have the leading platform for small cell in terms of performance, power efficient, cost. It is enterprise grade. It is vRAN and O-RAN compliant. So that's an element where we have more than 15 OEM that are developing small cell for 5G based on our FSM platform, right? So that's one key component. The second component that I'll talk a little bit more is the private network ecosystem partner program. We announced this at Mobile World Congress in February. So I'll spend a little bit of time here because this is key. We go back to the previous point. Multi-vendor, that's what is important, right? There is not going to be a single vendor fits all solution. So then, okay, you want to do multi-vendor. But the last thing that you want is you want to tell the enterprise, oh, pick the small cell from vendor A, pick the core network for vendor B, pick the orchestration for vendor C, and good luck, right? That's not how you want to approach the problem. So the way we're doing is that we are working, we have set up a lab here in San Diego. We are working with multiple small cell vendors, multiple core network vendors, multiple orchestration and hosting vendors, and we are going to test blueprints for private network in our lab, right? That's key important. And when I say test, I'm not talking about IODT, because that's the other point that a lot of people have tried. Oh, I'm doing a basic IODT, so interoperability testing. I set up a call, and then I expect things to work. And then you go in the enterprise, and things don't work because, yeah, you can set up a call, but maybe the throughput is low, the latency high, mobility doesn't work, right? So what we are going to do as part of our partner program is to test the heck out of it, right? That's what we're going to do. We're going to test mobility, test latency, test performance, everything. And there is no implication that everything will work automatically in the enterprise. There is still some customizable work that needs to happen in the enterprise, but the idea is that for different use cases, for different verticals. We have different blueprints that have been tested significantly in our lab, so then when our partner, like system integration, takes that to the end customer, let's say that 90% of the work has been done, right? Because customer doesn't have patience. You have to go there, there are only few knobs needs to be changed, right? So that's a key initiative that we are doing, the partner program, again, because we want to enable multi-vendor, and enable multi-vendor by hiding the complexity of the multi-vendor. The second aspect that we are going to do is, again, about hiding the complexity of multi-vendor. We have announced this at Mobile Congress as well. We have our Qualcomm Private Network Run Automation Platform, right? So think about this in the following way. I said earlier, it's important to be easy to manage, easy to deploy, easy to optimize. But how do you do that if you have very different vendors in the ecosystem, right? So our platform provides the common layer, working with all our around vendors underneath, provide the common layer of API, so that as an enterprise, as a system integrator, as a mobile network operator, you don't have to learn the complexity, the languages, if you want. I'm going a little bit technical, the EMS or the FCAPs of every single vendor. You just rely on the API provided by our platform, so that it doesn't matter which vendor is underneath from a management perspective, right? So this is, again, another way. These are the two ways how we're going to enable multi-vendor. Of course, we are going to enable multi-vendor underneath with our small cell platform and chipset, but that's what we are already doing. These two initiatives are specific initiative, a new initiative for private network. The partner program to test everything properly, the platform to make sure that we provide a single set of API to manage, deploy, and optimize the network. And so just to go a little bit more on the next level of details, the set of tools that this platform provides go from planning to operations, right? So go from the estimator of the TCO to the RF planning and onboarding to installing configuration, acceptance test, and then therefore at the end of the day to automated run operations. Somehow the goal is going to be that you deploy the network. Of course, some initial RF planning needs to happen, but then the network kind of coach itself, right, or optimize itself by looking at this RAN platform, getting the different KPI from the platform, understanding if one area is more heavy on uplink, and so more uplink resources need to be put in one area of the factory, or in the other area of the factory. If latency is a problem in our, and then provides input to whoever is managing the network, there may be more resources are needed, and so forth. So all these high-level functionality will be provided as an abstract high-level API, hiding all the complexity of the RAN management underneath. So in terms of partner program, we have done, again, at Mobile Congress, a significant announcement with Microsoft. So Microsoft is our first partner on the core network and on the Mac for our partner private network program, right? So you can see our Qualcomm and Microsoft solution are very complementary, where Qualcomm will provide a pre-validated 5G RAN platform. The automation platform will provide all the testing with devices, commercial devices as well, together with the Microsoft core network and the Azure private 5G core. And so the two together will be able to provide that seamless operation, enterprise-grade operation, where we call it chip to cloud, right? Where we would have tested from the chipset in the device and in the small cell to the cloud and the application on the Microsoft level, right? So we are very excited about this. We are going to be commercial. We are already testing in our lab here a lot of things. We are going to be commercial in the third quarter of this year. So one key point, I talked a little bit about system integrator and who manages the network. So who is the recipient of this testing that we do? And but what about the mobile network operators? Right? I think we have a lot of mobile network operators in the audience, and there is a lot of discussion about, is private network a good fit for mobile network operator and so forth. And we think, of course, it is, right? It is because of the assets that mobile network operators have, right? If you think about a mobile network operator, first of all, I'll take the thing in the middle, right? Who is the main player who now know how to build, deploy, and manage a network? It is the mobile network operator, after all, right? Of course, there are new players coming in, system integrator and so forth, but the mobile network operators are still the key player that have the expertise to deploy and manage the network, right? And then going on the left, you have the licensed spectrum asset, right? I mean, we know there are a lot of countries, or some countries at least, that have dedicated spectrum for private network, right? CBRS here in US is one example. We have Germany, we have France, we have Korea, Japan. There are a few solutions out there, but still, in many use cases and in many countries, there is licensed spectrum that can be used, and millimeter wave is an example, right? Licensed spectrum that can be used for private network. Operator owns the spectrum and can use that asset to engage with enterprises and have a private network business. And at the end of the day, it's the sales channel. Every single operator has enterprise sales channel right now, right? And so they can use for that. Right? So the point here is, when, as Qualcomm, we provide the partner program and we provide a run automation platform, we are looking at various channels throughout the ecosystem in how we deploy private network. Mobile network operator is one, and system integrators can be the other. So to summarize a little bit and to leave at least a couple of minutes for questions. So first of all, digital transformation, we know, keyword right now, but if you go technology-wise underneath, there is a lot of investment at the application level, but you need connectivity. And connectivity is the foundational part of the digital transformation, and private network is going to be the way in the future we will provide connectivity to many industries. You need a multi-vendor solution because the diversity of the use cases is such that there is never going to be one solution fits all. So you need to engage many players in the ecosystem, but you need to simplify the way enterprises will be able to adopt that technology. And so that's why we are introducing these new aspects, the partner program, where we are going to test and validate and pre-certify a lot of use cases and vendor combination for specific verticals. And we are introducing this RAN platform, automation RAN platform, in order to simplify the management and the deployment at the software level, so that, again, the complexity of the 5G performance, the multi-vendor aspects of it, and all the details that we spend as engineers a lot of time on can be abstracted to whoever is deploying the private network. As with that, I thank you and open to questions if there is any. Any question? Yeah, one question here. Somebody bring a mic here. It's here. Thanks.
I'll come to you. Thanks very much. Great presentation.
How
do you see the deployment of eSIM in private networks?
So that's a good question, is the credential aspect of private network is definitely a key aspect. eSIM or any downloadable type of technology for credential is going to be what we see as an enabler for private network, absolutely. And there are different ways how this can be done. And again, it's going to be, sorry to keep going there, diverse situation, right? You can have private network where in an event like that, when you scan a QR code and you download the credentials, or you can have more, managed eSIM download towards the, whatever you have in your factory, and therefore you have machines and robots and so forth, you download eSIM, right? But definitely we see that as another area where you need to evolve a little bit the way you cannot distribute plastic SIM for all this private network, absolutely. So it's a good point and is a fundamental aspect of the technology. One question over there.
Got that one, Ed? Hey, Gerado. So this is Justin. Quick question. I know we kind of working together for the partnership program for the private network. It's a very good initiative by Qualcomm. The question is there any plan like to have like a regular, like a forum per se, to bring all the partners on a regular basis, let's say every quarter or every 6 months, stuff like that? Like that from Qualcomm perspective. That might be very helpful for the entire ecosystem under Qualcomm the system initiative. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. So I think that's a good suggestion. I think, as you know, by the way, Foxconn is in our lab right now. We have done the demo at Mobile World Congress with them, so very thankful of the partnership, right? So I think we are setting up the lab right now. We have 2 small cell vendors in the lab, 1 core network vendor. We're going to add another small cell vendor, another core network vendor in June, July timeframe. So I think we are ramping up. I think it's a good suggestion that maybe once we ramped up, we make it more of a more open and somehow regular sync up across all the partners. I think it's a very good suggestion, so we'll take that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any more questions? No? Oh.
Hi. You mentioned a lot of the key challenges around private network deployments. One of the things that we've heard a lot from enterprises is that there's simply not many 5G-enabled devices, and you know it's a very fragmented ecosystem, lots of use cases. What do you see as Qualcomm's role in accelerating adoption, with the end device side?
Well, that's our main role, right? So we are working hard on that. I think Cristiano has presented a lot of that. I think we are looking for laptops enabled with 5G for corporate enterprises already. We're looking at a lot of, I think there are some talks later, and there will be some yesterday about industrial devices with 5G. The robotic platform is based on 5G as well. So, it's a journey, as we are the 4th year of 5G now. So it's, of course, the initial focus will be as being smartphone, but we are seeing more and more adoption on 5G. The other component that is important, I haven't talked about it because it goes a little bit more on the technology, is the enablement of standalone networks versus non-standalone network, right? When so 4G, non-standalone as being 4G and 5G, while standalone being 5G only. And when you deploy a private network, of course, you don't want to go into the complexity of I need both 4G and 5G. I need both 4G spectrum and 5G spectrum, or I need to split the CBRS spectrum between 4G and 5G. So that, as we have seen the last year, that has progressed as well in terms of device maturity, core network maturity, and so forth. So we see the next couple of years definitely because of the standalone adoption to be much, much easier in the deployment. So it's both the network and the devices, but it's our goal here.
One follow-up question. So because you're, as Qualcomm, you're close to the device side and the networking side, where would you place your bets on adoption, based on that end device? Because you've made, like you're saying, you're doing some work in headsets, like VR headsets, and that's one of the use cases for this, or robotics. But based on what's happening on the end device level, where do you see adoption happening first? I think
the adoption will be related to 2 aspects. One is the device aspect. One is just the cycle of innovation that there are in different industries. For example, in the enterprise, like when I say enterprise, carpeted enterprises, offices, and so forth, I think devices are already there. There are XR devices, as you mentioned. There are 5G-enabled laptops. So that is the device component has been cleared in that sense, at least for some devices. So then with standalone coming in, I think it's about the time. I think in other use cases, like in a manufacturing use case, I think it may take, there is going to be a lot of trials and simple deployment to get really to scale. It may take some time just because the players, before relying your full factory production into a new technology completely wireless you have never done, you're going to go step by step. So the adoption there may be a little bit slower, but then probably that's where majority of the market is, or majority of the opportunity is, when you really have to digitally transform the factories. So it's going to be a combination of those. And I think my time is up. So thanks a lot. Thanks, everybody.